Tonight, it is on. Two of the greatest Sabbath albums of all time are going head to head. The only question left is, will the mob rule, or will heaven and hell remain divine? Find out next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to another episode of The Metal Dude Abides. Tonight we're going to continue with our series where we go year by year, recognizing the best heavy metal of all time. Tonight we're in the year 1981, and we're discussing two of the greatest Black Sabbath albums in history, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. Now you guys know the drill, you know the story. Ozzy has left the band, dumped by Tony Iommi and crew. They have picked up new lead singer Ronnie James Dio, and Black Sabbath is about to revive their careers and have two of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time. But which one's the best? Well, let's discover this together. As you may know, we're doing a little bit of an album throwdown. So what I want from you is for you to vote, for you to go down in the comments and you select Heaven and Hell or Mob Rules. Now you can do it right now. If you have a strong opinion, go down to the comments, give it a thumbs up, and vote. If you want to wait to see what I want to say, see if I persuade you anyway, you can wait till later on after I reveal which one I think is the best. But without further ado, let's get to it. Heaven and Hell versus Mob Rules. Now, a brief description of the rules. We're going to go track by track. We're going to have a maximum of 10 points we can assign to the songs. So if it's really close, it's like 6-4. A knockout goes 10 zip. And I won't do ties. You've got to pick a winner for each of these tracks. So let's get going. Track 1, Heaven and Hell, starts out with the legendary, the iconic Neon Nights. Now listen, there was a lot of pressure on Black Sabbath. There was a lot of people who doubted that Sabbath could come back after Ozzy left. This is the song that they are going to make their statement. This is how they're going to reintroduce themselves to the fans, and oh baby, do they knock it out of the park. Neon Nights from Heaven and Hell. A year later, on the album Mob Rules, we open with Turn Up the Night, a song very similar to Neon Nights in that it is very fast, very hard charging, great way to start the album off with a ton of energy. But folks, this is a knockout right off the bat. And it goes to Neon Nights. 10 zip on this one. Listen, Turn Up the Night's a great song. I love that song. But Neon Nights is just the absolute best album opener you could do. I think the biggest difference for me on these two, they're both fast, they're both great, but the lyrics in Neon Nights just really stands out far above what is on Turn Up the Night. It has to be the winner. So Heaven and Hell's off to a strong start. 10 zip. The battle for track 2 is going to be a little bit more competitive. From Heaven and Hell, we have the slow and sinister Children of the Sea going against, from Mob Rules, the heavy, crunchy Voodoo. And Black Sabbath obviously thought a lot of both these songs, as they are back to back on their double live album, Live Evil. And I will say that if I listen to a version of either of these songs, I go to that Live Evil recording. I think they are iconic versions of these two songs. As you can tell, I like them both a great deal. But Children of the Sea is really the song that I fell in love with Black Sabbath on. Like, I get the album, I'm interested to see, never heard Black Sabbath before, get Heaven and Hell, Neon Nights, ooh, this sounds good. And then Children of the Sea came on. And I mean, it just blew my mind. I thought, whoa, what is this? Whoa, this is different. Whoa, this is special. This right here, first time I'd ever heard Ronnie James Dio. And I was just stunned at the softness of his voice and then the power in his voice. The combination really plays out. The range really plays out in this song. So I love Voodoo. It is a great song, but it's going down by a score of 8-2. The winner got to be In the Misty Morning, Children of the Sea. Can Heaven and Hell keep up the momentum? So far, they're off to a fast start. And on the third track, they throw out the legendary Lady Evil. A little bit of a departure from the heavy, somber Children of the Sea. This one's a little bit more upbeat, but it goes up against a monster. Sign of the Southern Cross, the third track off Mob Rules. When people talk about epic songs, look no farther than Sign of the Southern Cross. It is suffocatingly heavy. It starts out with this beautiful acoustic guitar, Ronnie James Dio singing up in the higher register, and then it comes crashing down. It gets heavy and slow and just pounds you into submission. Personally, I love Lady Evil. I love the bass playing of Geezer Butler. In particular, one of the things that I really enjoy about this era of Sabbath, Geezer Butler, to me, on these two albums, some of the finest work he's ever done in his career. Lady Evil's right up there. But again, this should be a knockout for Sign of the Southern Cross. I didn't really like this song as much as when I was younger. I focused a little bit more on a few of the other Sabbath songs, but as I've grown older, I've grown to appreciate this song more and more as the years have gone by. Sign of the Southern Cross is one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs, and poor old Lady Evil can't compete. It should be a knockout, but since I have a soft spot for Lady Evil, I'm going to give this to Sign of the Southern Cross 9-1. 1 point for Lady Evil. Whenever you go to a big prize fight, or whenever you go to like an MMA or a wrestling event, there's a main event. There's a big heavyweight battle. That's the highlight of the night. Well, we've found the heavyweight battle. Whereas this album has a lot of lopsided scores where one song seems to be better than the other. Here you have the two title tracks going head to head. This is the main event, as they say. The title track for Heaven and Hell, many people consider this to be the greatest Dio era Black Sabbath song. It was won countless awards, and Ronnie James Dio himself has said this was his greatest accomplishment. But it's going up against another juggernaut with a twist. Not only is it going up against the title track Mob Rules, but it's going up against the intro, E5150. Now, you may or may not have heard Mob Rules. It's on this album. It's on the heavy metal soundtrack. I'm putting a plug in for the heavy metal soundtrack because we might be talking about it during the hard rock category in a couple of weeks. So there's a couple of different versions of the song on here, but you really haven't heard the Mob Rules unless you've also heard the intro, E5150, which is a very creepy instrumental that really sets the pace for then when the Mob Rule kicks on with that breakneck speed, the contrast between the slow, doomy E5150 and the fast riff of Mob Rules is fantastic. I'm going with the upset here, people. Listen, I get it. Heaven and Hell is fantastic. It is iconic. It's even been covered by Jack Black. If you've never heard Tenacious D riff on the beginning of this, the devil is never a maker, but I think he might be coaching the Lakers. Something to that effect. Jack Black is so funny. Anyway, listen, if you say Heaven and Hell is the best song that Dio did, I'm not going to argue with you. But I prefer Mob Rules. This song is so heavy. And again, one of the things that you know, there's so much focus on Dio and Ozzy and the contrast between the two, but the one thing that stands through the entirety of the Sabbath collection is those mighty Tony Iommi riffs. And Mob Rules is one of my favorite fast, heavy riffs. So I'm going to give it to Mob Rules 6-4. But because of its legendary status, because I don't want to argue with Dio saying this is his best song, I'm going to give them a bonus point for just their legendary status. So this one goes Mob Rules 6-5. All right, the flip side of this album starts with another knockout, because we have, from Heaven and Hell, we have the song Wishing Well. If there is such a thing as an upbeat Black Sabbath song, especially during the Dio era, here it is, folks. But it stands no chance against the cult classic, Country Girl. I don't know why Country Girl works. It's kind of an odd, if you listen to the lyrics, it's kind of an odd song. You know, watch out for that Country Girl, she'll break your heart. Doesn't seem like a Black Sabbath type of song. And it, you know, this might be the best non-Black Sabbath song, right? Something like that. But that opening riff is so infectious. And somehow or another, you'll long be singing Fell in Love with a Country Girl for hours on end. 10-zip, Country Girl. The deep track I want to focus in on Mob Rules, right here. Country Girl's fantastic. If you've never heard it, give it a chance. You'll love it. All right, after Mob Rules posts 3 wins in a row, Heaven and Hell's like, not so fast, my friend, and it comes out swinging. Heaven and Hell produces the song Die Young, arguably one of the best tracks on the Heaven and Hell album, and Mob Rules comes out with Slipping Away, arguably the weakest track on that album. This one's not even close, folks. This is a big-time knockout. I love Die Young. I love the lyrics of Die Young. I love one of my favorite Tony Iommi guitar solos. Bill Ward's drumming on this song is fantastic. Dio sings the hell out of it. There's just no way Slipping Away can compete. Sure, Slipping Away has some cool bass solos from Geezer and kind of some cool little guitar duels with Tony Iommi. It's a good song. But Die Young is, again, one of those Hall of Fame classics and takes all 10 points. As we're coming down the stretch, these two albums are throwing absolute haymakers, and we're going to have the third knockout in a row. Heaven and Hell produces the weakest track on either of these albums, in my opinion, Walk Away, against my pick for the greatest Black Sabbath song of all time, Falling Off the Edge of the World. This might be a hot take, but this song is their absolute best. It is not a big hit. It's considered probably a deep track. But oh baby, is this the best song they've ever done? Absolutely. It starts off slow, Dio singing again in that high range, and then it kind of ticks off, and then all of a sudden, Tony Iommi puts another. I mean, how many riffs does Tony Iommi have up his sleeve? This is one of his best. Like, you can always count on, even the bad Black Sabbath albums have at least one riff where you go, wow, Tony Iommi, how does he do it? How does he keep coming up with new and original riffs? This thing is an absolute monster. This could be 50-0. Because I don't really, like, I don't know, Walk Away is it's not a bad song. Again, there's no bad songs in either of these albums. But it's definitely like one, when I put my playlist together, is not going to make the cut. whereas this bad boy ends up on almost all of my playlists from this era. Love this song to death. I recently did a top 100 heavy metal songs of all time. Not surprising, but this one right at the very tip top. Falling Off the Edge of the World, the big winner, Tin Zip. So far, we've looked at these two albums and looked at how similar they are. After all, you have two albums that are put back to back with Sabbath and Dio. After this, although they do put out a live album, Dio goes his own way, does his own solo career. Yes, they get back together, a decade later, but that's not really considered the same era of Sabbath. So these albums kind of stand alone in the catalog. Very similar. We talked about how the opening tracks are both fast and their title tracks are both epics. But there is a big difference between these two albums that I haven't really talked about. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. They have a huge personnel change because on Heaven and Hell, Bill Ward is the drummer. And on Mob Rules, Vinny Appice is the drummer. Now, I will be the first to admit, I like both of these drummers a great deal. So it's not a huge shift, if you will, in quality of music. But it really does make a difference here because I have to give the edge to Bill Ward. Not because I think Bill Ward's that much of a better drummer than Vinny Appice. And in some ways, Vinny Appice fits the Dio Sabbath version better than Bill Ward. But Bill Ward has two of the best drumming songs you're ever going to hear. We talked a little bit about it earlier on the song Die Young. And we're going to talk about it right here on this bad boy. Heaven and Hell produces the song Lonely is the Word. We talked about the fact that maybe Country Girl is my favorite deep track on that album. This is my favorite deep track on Heaven and Hell. Lonely is the Word is fantastic. It starts with this heavy, crunchy riff. Again, Tony Iommi's just pulling him out of his sleeve. This thing is heavy. And then the last 4 minutes of the song, sure, there's one more chorus in there, but really two huge instrumental performances, solos by Tony Iommi, and the drumming. Bill Ward takes us from the first part of the song into each transition beautifully. I gotta say, this here is such a great Bill Ward drum track, maybe my favorite of his. For sure, from the Dio era. This and Die Young are great. This one, I think, edges them out. And Tony Iommi is fantastic on this as well. Tony Iommi himself, much like Dio said about Heaven and Hell, Tony Iommi said this was one of his favorite instrumental performances of his career. So Mob Rules, they're going to come out with Over and Over and Over Again. And it's a great song. And it's very similar in that the last 4 minutes or so of that song are just a vehicle, basically, for Tony Iommi to just go nuts. He absolutely... The riff on Lonely is the Word, one of his best. The guitar solo on Over and Over, one of his best. Very different approaches, but both songs have a whole lot of the great Tony Iommi. So this one's going to be close, but Lonely is the Word is going to take it 7-3, and I am going to give a bonus point for Bill Ward's drumming. Bill Ward, he just had it tough. He was the one, of course, we talked about, he was the one who had to go in and give Ozzy the bad news, his best friend. He had to fire him from the band. He really never recovered. He ends up, trying to move forward with Sabbath, but quits on this Heaven and Hell tour. Alcohol and drugs are ravaging him. But Bill Ward, what a sensational drummer. Salute to you. You get a bonus point for your epic drumming on this album. And I think that's it. It's a close one, But if my math adds up, Heaven and Hell takes it 42-40, razor thin. These two albums are so good. They are absolutely both Hall of Fame bound, and it broke my heart. I'll be honest with you. We'll talk about it, I guess, when the time comes, but it broke my heart when they couldn't get along and Dio departs. We got some great solo albums from Dio. We got some great Sabbath albums going forward, but I don't think any of it competed with these two. Just masterpieces. Anyway, congratulations to Heaven and Hell, sneaking out the victory. Once again, if you haven't voted yet, go down below, give me a thumbs up, and then tell me, Heaven and Hell or Mob Rules. We'll tally it up, and we'll have the definitive answer. As you know, I put out polls. I will put out the results of the poll soon. All right. Now, yes, we're here to talk about these two great albums. But the reason we're talking about these albums is because we have a vocalist by the name of Ronnie James Dio who's trying to win yet another Vocalist of the Year award. But he's going to face some tough competition. Let's go through the 5 nominees for Vocalist of the Year, 1981. Our first nominee, the defending champs are in the house, Black Sabbath, Sign of the Southern Cross. Now, if you've been watching along with the channel, you'll know that Ronnie James Dio won the Best Vocalist of the Year in 1980 for the album Heaven and Hell. And here in 1981, he has an equally impressive performance with Mob Rules. Maybe my 2 favorite vocal performances for him here. One has to be Sign of the Southern Cross. One has to be Falling Off the Edge of the World. I could go either way. I went with Sign of the Southern Cross, but it's a close one. Our first nominee, Black Sabbath, Sign of the Southern Cross. Now, curveball here. The other defending champions are in the house. Judas Priest with the song On the Run. Now, if you haven't been watching, you may be a little confused right now and say, Metal Dude, what are you talking about? How can there be 2 defending champions? Well, I kind of bent the rules just a little bit last, and I gave Rob Halford and the Priest top vocalist of the year for the song, The Rage. Okay, I cheated. I don't care. Which made Rob Halford a 3-time winner. So he's going for a 4th championship right here. Now, for those of you who know me, I'm not a real fan of Point of Entry, and I don't really think that there's a lot of great tracks on here. Even for the great Halford, seems like he kind of toned it down in this one and didn't have nearly as great of songs. But there are 2 really good songs on here. I almost went with Desert Plains, a really cool ballad, and probably the best song on the album. But then the last track on this album, On the Run, holy cow. Halford's like, okay, I got to just pull out an all-timer, on every album, and this one is hit. Halford is amazing. Can he win it 4 years in a row? He's going to try it with On the Run, our second nominee. Now, we see a lot of repeat performers in the vocals category. Halford, Dio. We've seen lots of Robert Plant. We've seen lots of Klaus Meine. But we've got a newcomer to the category here. In fact, we've got a couple. But the first one, Riot and Guy Speranza with the song Swords and Tequila. I fell in love with Riot in 1981, and unfortunately, after this album, Guy Speranza leaves the band. I think he is one of the most underrated singers of all time. He has got a very unique voice, powerful, melodic. It kind of has it all. Now, he doesn't go up in the high registers like Rob Halford. He doesn't have the big screams. It's very much more a steady tone with his. He doesn't have the range of Ronnie James Dio, but what he does very well. And I think you could go with many different songs off Fire Down Under, but I'm going to go with Swords and Tequila because that's the song I fell in love with Guy Speranza's voice on. Our third nominee, Swords and Tequila by Riot. Another veteran, but we haven't seen him in a while, Sammy Hagar, One Way to Rock. Sammy, of course, started off with the band Montrose, really had some great vocals there. His solo career has been steadily climbing, and really on this album, Standing Hampton, he just knocks it into the different stratosphere. Really good vocals on this, and the production of it is really good as well. I think that might be a real big boost here, is that Sammy Hagar's production on Standing Hampton really takes it to the next level. So our fourth nominee, Sammy Hagar with There's Only One Way to Rock. And finally, another newcomer, and one of my favorite vocalists of all time, and a unique vocalist because he's also the lead guitar for his band, Y&T with the song Rescue Me. Dave Meniketti. How is this band not bigger? How is this guy not a household name? I will never know. I fell in love with Y&T right about here. They are going to have about 3 albums here, stretch, that's just unbelievably good. Don't know how the general public missed this. If you are one of those unfortunate souls who missed the heyday of Y&T, go in and just listen. We'll be talking about them for the next couple of years. Don't worry. But this is the start of a nice run of some really great hard rock, heavy metal music. And the winner is no cheats, no spoofs, no bending and twisting. There's a clear winner. Black Sabbath, Sign of the Southern Cross. We are hitting prime Ronnie James Dio territory here. There's not too many vocalists that can compete, and nobody does in the year 1981. Again, what I did last year, I just, how can you pick one song? I just went with the whole album. I could have done that again here. Really toss up between a couple songs, but if it wasn't Sign of the Southern Cross, Falling Off the Edge of the World would win this. That's how dominant this year Dio is. Halford, always a contender, had some great songs, but this was a little bit of a step back from some of his better work. Point of Entry was a little bit of a soft album for Priest, but I have a feeling they're going to be back in 1982, so be aware of that. Yeah, this one was a surprisingly easy pick. It seems like every year I'm just wrestling and struggling with who's going to, pull it out. This year, an easy one. Big win for Dio. Congratulations for Dio, who now has 2 wins in a row, and he'll be going for that Triple Crown 3 in a row next year. All right, now the Grammys that year, well, they had a couple of interesting picks. For the male artist, they picked ye old Ricky Springfield with Jesse's Girl. Now, I got to tell you, this song is awful. My sister played that song in her room 1,000,006 times. Just dreadful. And I'll tell you a funny story. So I'm going to church. I'm in the Sunday school class with this big individual, just big muscular individuals who loved Jesse's Girl. And I was like, I was going to make fun of him, but he was twice my size. So I decided not to. But I always found it really funny that this big bodybuilder guy was like, oh, I like Jesse's Girl. I'm like, oh my God, why do you like such a crappy song? And I can't even make fun of you because you'll pummel me. So anyway, do not like Ricky Springfield. Do not like Jesse's Girl. Can't stand either of them. Now for the group that year, they do a little bit better. They go with The Police. Don't Stand So Close to Me. I like The Police. I have a few of their albums. I like this song. But again, I don't understand the criteria here. Are we talking about a song that's just beautifully sung, that is, hits all or are you just taking, like, what's the criteria? Sting, is he a great vocalist? And even if you say yes, that he is, don't say, the stuff he was doing with the Police was pretty average, I thought, as far as great vocalists go. So I didn't really care for either of those. So male vocalist of the year, not just in heavy metal, hard rock, but in rock and all categories in between. Vocalist of the year, easy peasy, Black Sabbath, the Sign of the Southern Cross. Now on the female side, what do you know? I'm going to agree with the Grammys, because we're both going to pick Pat Benatar for the song Fire and Ice. Where Ann Wilson dominated this category in the 70s, in the early 80s, it's all Pat Benatar. Listen, I had a crush on Joan Jett, and she comes in strong. I was, just because she's my crush, I wanted to give her a little love, but come on. Pat Benatar's got twice the voice of Joan Jett. As much as I love Joan, this is Pat Benatar's year, and this stretch of Pat Benatar music, absolutely some of the best music you're ever going to hear. If you missed, again, the great Pat Benatar era, I would go right to about here. Me and Pat Benatar are going to have a little bit of a split up after this. She gets a little too commercial for my taste, and kind of gets away from that hard edge that she has up to this point. So, but through this early 80s, 80 and 81, Pat Benatar, the absolute best. Congratulations to Pat Benatar. She's going to win Best Hard Rock Heavy Metal Female Vocalist and Best Overall Female Vocalist. Her and Dio bringing home the gold. And that's our show. So once again, please vote for your favorite Iron Maiden song. And if you have a strong preference on who you think the best vocalist of the year is, put a vote in there for that. And when you go down there and put that in the comments, while you're there, give me a like, give me a subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things YouTube loves for you to do, so we can grow the channel and continue to bring you all of this great content. We get together just about every Tuesday. We missed a week because I was actually at a concert. I was out watching KK's Priest and Accept, so we did skip a Tuesday. But if I don't have a great heavy metal concert to go to, we usually do this right here. I might even be talking about some of the concerts I'm going to September and October. Holy cow. It's like every week there's like 3 metal bands showing up that I want to see. Budget-wise and everything, we'll see who ends up getting, the axe. But why is everybody coming at once? Does anybody else have this problem? Is this just, Denver is just inundated right now. I just mentioned, just got through seeing Accept, right? Udo's coming like in 2 weeks. Like both of the, the split up of the Accept, both are coming within just 2 weeks of each other. Then I just got through seeing KK's Priest. Judas Priest is hot on their heels, and they're coming the exact same weekend as Maiden's coming. Who's coming the same weekend as Lorna Shore's coming? Like, what's going on here, people? Let's spread the love. I have a feeling like November and December, I'm going to be sitting around doing nothing, no shows to see, and there's going to be 37 shows in September and October. You don't want to hear about my problems. Just subscribe to the channel, and we'll be talking probably about some of these shows in upcoming episodes. You don't want to miss it. But until then, this is the Metal Dude signing off. Take care.